Yeah.
All right.
Enjoy the talk.
So I want to spend a few minutes on telling you something from the internals of the development organization about what we are doing internally throughout the years, what is important to us and stuff. And I hope we then can move slowly over to the evening event, get a bunch of cool drinks to refresh a bit. But first of all, let's have a look at what I want to share with you. So what I want to talk about is how we built up the organization over the years, how we grow and stuff. Then I want to have a focus on two very important topics, the quality of Checkmk and also the security. And lastly, I want to share a few news with you regarding how we deliver Checkmk. So let's dive in. This is the growth we have had over the past years in the tech organization of Checkmk. Initially, we had a very strong focus on growing up the development team, mostly because we had a lot of demand, a lot of ideas, things to build, and so we needed developers to realize all these things, gain knowledge, build up the product, maintain it, and stuff like this. We also needed the consulting organization to grow, to sustain the demand and support in consulting business and these things. We also spent some effort in the user manual. As you hopefully all know, we have invested a lot of time over the years, also grew up a part of organization to explicitly care for that, because we know that this is very important, to properly explain how things should work and how we should use that. And then, during the past 2 years, we were starting to build up a dedicated product management function, with a dedicated team caring for these aspects of software development, requirements management, user experience, and stuff like this, to have more focus on that. From the development side, there are also some maybe interesting metrics you can have a look at. This is from our GitHub Checkmk repository, where you also can see to some degree the growth and activity over the years, which I think we should not take too important, but yeah, it's a kind of an indication that we are growing up our speed, our momentum, we care for many things and do a lot of things along the way. So how is our engineering team actually set up? We have a bunch of teams. We have structured them in several different kinds of teams. On the one hand, we have the so-called stream-aligned teams, which are mostly carrying on realizing the roadmap we have for the product and also related products. And then we have other teams which can be named platform teams, so they provide a service to the rest of the development team, and enabling teams which provide a specific skill, some knowledge to the development team. Yeah. And here are our teams. On the first row are these stream-aligned teams which are working through the roadmap. And on the lower end, on the lower row, there's the platform teams like the CI team, which is obviously serving our CI, and code review teams for the teams, and such a knowledge team like the security team, which provides some special expertise, also some special perspective on software development to the rest of the team. Then we have also the QA team, which we have founded not long ago, which has been added to the team to have more traction in terms of quality assurance, namely in test automation on system test level. Now, we did some things before there, but this was also shared responsibility across all the teams. And now we have some expert in this field which can explicitly, with their, again, special perspective on the software, do a good job to ensure Checkmk's quality. And we have a UI framework project actively ongoing, which is essentially evaluating what is out there in the industry, what kind of ways are there to build user interfaces, how does it work, or how would it work together with Checkmk, where are the challenges, what can we improve along the way under the hood in the user interface while we learn where we want to move to. Now more specifically, what are the teams doing? Team main is caring for one of the most important parts of the software, very important core components like the microcore, live status, event console, agent bakery, Windows agent. These are components maintained by this team, but they not only care for these components, they also do architectural work. So they review architectures we have, discuss along what could be done better in terms of clear cuts between components, what can we do also to reduce technical debt, and yeah, these things are also done within this team. Then we have the team Rubicon, which is not only caring for the user interface of Checkmk, the biggest component with all the features it has. They are also working on related projects like the REST API, like the Grafana integration, and are also involved in many or maybe all of the usability-related actions we make, the improvements, the experiments we make there, and these things. Then we have the team Neil, which has been enabling the cloud use cases we have already presented today, but they were not exclusively focusing on that. They were also working on the TLS encryption. We have also available for the non-cloud specific use cases, and they work on other architectural aspects of Checkmk, the check engine, check API, things like that are also, many of them are done in this team. And last in this line is the SaaS team with a very sharp profile, actually the sharpest, I guess. They built our software as a service platform, so Checkmk as a service. Then to the other teams, Team CI, yeah, the name is program here. They host the CI system. They host our code review system internally. They work on improvements of these systems, for example, to improve the way we manage the CI jobs. They improve efficiency of these jobs. For example, bringing down the build time of a Checkmk release. A few years ago, we needed like 6 hours for a complete release. By now, we can do this in roughly 30 minutes. That's also output of their work. Then we have the security team, and yeah, these are actually security experts, application security experts, and yeah, they can basically provide their expertise to Checkmk development, have a look at what we do, review things, set up new guidelines, set up new processes, teach our teams, and yeah, build up our security knowledge. Then there's the QA team, which is a test automation team. They focus on this. They build new frameworks for building tests to make it easier for all the other developers to build these tests, but also work on new test approaches themselves. And the UI framework team, as I already said, they are trying to find a way for Checkmk to build a new user interface, to build new things into the existing user interface, to improve architectures under the hood, and make development in this area easier, also make using the interface faster and also easier. Then then we can also have a look at what we actually spend our time on. Actually, we do feature development. That's for sure. We do this, and we also talk about the results throughout these 2 days. Besides that, we invest a lot of time in the future of Checkmk. And that's a lot of things. Through the last years, we did a bunch of things. You can see them here on the slide, which are partially huge projects, partially only smaller changes we make to the software. And for many of them, you won't even recognize if we do that. But in the end, it really helps us to understand the software better as a developer, because we have a better structure, and also it enables to sustain the feature development, so that you have some growth in the software, then you somehow need to reshuffle a bit to make it clearer again, and then you can move on and do the next step also more efficient. And last but not least, we participate in customer support, mostly in the role of third-level supporters. And we also work on crash reports that are reported to us and pull requests that are sent to us. As you've already seen, that's quite a number of pull requests we review and discuss through with the contributors, and then in the end, hopefully merge as many as we can. Okay, so next topic, let's have a look at the quality and security aspects of the development and what is important to us there. If you're not into software development from the user perspective, or maybe you're scripting something around, you may not really be aware of what is helping in software development to process faster, to detect errors earlier. So for us, in the scale we develop software, it is really important to uncover the issues as soon in the development cycle as we can. And this is in the developer's editor, and when he's working on the code. And there are some tools which can help there, like static analysis tools. Then the second most efficient is doing automated tests. So you edited the file in the editor, then you execute the automated test, and then hopefully you get a fast result. That's also something which is very important, but it's less efficient than doing something directly in the editor. We have unit tests there, and on top of that, there's various kinds of test approaches, up to system-level tests, like end-to-end tests, which essentially interact with your software and mimic the user's behavior. Let me quickly dive into a few of these things to give you a better understanding of what we do there. So to us, a very important tool is typing. And I guess not all of you are aware of that, so I try to give a short introduction, and please, that's a simplified introduction, so don't shout at me, developers. So what is typing about? When you're in your code, you define a variable and you assign values to that. And with typing, you additionally define what type the value is of that you assign to the variable. For example, you say this variable must only hold an integer and not a string. And if at some point someone tries to assign a string to that variable, the editor, or the integration of the type checker in the editor, will shout at you, "You're doing something wrong, please think about it again." And that is a very simple case where typing can help. And there are way more complex scenarios we can have in the code, where in one file, far away from our specific code, something is defined which we use directly or indirectly. Then we assign something, we call a function or something, and then we get a notification from the editor, "Yeah, you need to provide some different variable here, please do it." And that everything is done without me thinking about building test cases or unit tests in advance. So we tell the computer more than we did before, give him type information and stuff, and then the computer can figure out the combination of things we try to make, if it's possible or not, according to the typing system. And this is also the one of the main advantages of type checking, that you don't really have to think about all the cases you want to cover with your tests. You get some kind of automatic coverage once you define the types. So for us, the initial moment where this really paid off was the Python 2 to 3 transition, where many of the guidelines said, yeah, you just need to build a lot of unit tests. And we thought about that and fiddled around a bit with it and learned that typing actually helped a lot more than that. And throughout the years, with being with Python 3, that still is one of the best tools we can have to find issues in the development process. Besides typing, we have another kind of tool, which is linting. I guess a few more of you know what that is. It's kind of tools that you run together with your development workflow, which check your program code against some predefined rules, which can be stylistic rules. For example, the line length must not be longer than 120 characters or something. These can be quality rules that you want to avoid some kind of constructs of code. That can also be performance or security rules. And we use that also a lot to prevent issues in the editor of the developer. And after that, when we have edited the code, we run our tests, which are of different kind. Unit tests, integration tests, different other kinds. And on this slide, you can see how we have grown that over the years. 7 years ago, we were at 0. Adding that to our development approach, to our philosophy of how we want to build software in the future, we have grown that up rapidly over the time. And this is likely to continue somehow like this, because it's now a mandatory tool in our workflow. We have new features we add to the software, we want test coverage there. We have existing code, which is still not covered that good, but we will, once we approve, somehow come to that point where we work with that code, then we will add tests there. Now, something different, the release process. When we do patch releases, we have several quality gates defined in our release procedure. First of all, we have the automated testing in the CI. That needs to be green. Then we do internal test deployments, which already uncovers quite some number of issues. Last issue was covered, I think, 2 hours ago or in the morning. So lucky that we have that. And after we did that and have green light at that stage, we have several pilot customers. And these are all also bigger environments. These are quite different environments and can uncover another kind of issue. And once you have green light there, we can finally push the button and release the patch version. Of course, we are also doing major releases, and in this process, we take much more time than for patch releases, and we also do a lot more stuff than this. For example, we're doing focus testing on a wide range of existing features where the most knowledgeable people in these components, from the user perspective, means our consultants, have a look at these features, the existing ones and the new ones, review them, and also uncovers issues like usability issues, for example, which cannot be easily uncovered by automated tests. Now, a few words about a very specific story, the REST API. As you know, we have initially released that with Checkmk 2.0. In an initial version with the intention to at some point replace the so far existing web API. It did not have the full feature set yet. That was somehow intentional to gain experience with that API and also to have time to improve it in terms of performance, quality, usability. That has been done with the 2.1. We also added the missing features with that version, and with the 2.2, we extended on all these dimensions. We added a few more API calls. We added new test approaches, like also property-based testing, where you try to use your spec and then according to that spec generate some kind of random data, put it into the API and see if something crashes. And that was really kind of a success where we uncovered, I think, more than 40 kind of violations of the spec, which were most likely not easily to uncover from the user perspective in real life. But having the spec and the computer combined together, generating test cases, that really helped to catch all these edge cases and in the end also tighten our code and the spec according to what we wanted to have. Now some look at the internals of this component, the support tickets we had over time. As you can see, that started with a to 0, and we had kind of a really constant growth of incoming issues and solved issues. So that was kind of break even. And what we did with the 2.2 is that we decided to pin that down completely. Let's join forces, let's bring that completely down, understand the issues, solve all of them in the optimum. And since beginning of the year, we were really able to hold that on a low level. So we cleaned up the most important issues there, and also the things we added recently have really been tested extensively to get to a good quality level. Then, next topic is what are we doing with the new QA team we have? Also, the REST API testing was one of their first tasks they had. The new QA team is basically taking over work from from other teams. Currently, mostly from the development teams, which had the responsibility to do some test automation in specific areas. That's now more cared of by this team. They are basically exploring what we need in terms of on which level do we want to test, what tools do we need for that, which frameworks we want to build for that, and then also some kind of use it themselves for building that up. And then in the end, once they are done, they provide also a new service to the development team. They create the foundation, if you want so, and then others can build on top of that. And in the long run, they will also take over responsibilities, or some responsibilities from consultants when it comes to testing, by automating some of the things we so far test manually. Okay, so what are they doing right now? They are working on a new approach for doing check plugins testing. For us, this is important because when you look at regressions at Checkmk, the majority of them is an area of check plugins. The output changed unintended, some data could not be passed anymore, metrics are suddenly missing for whatever reason. Things like this can happen. And what we want to improve here is that we have some kind of higher level approach where we just insert some kind of data dump, the agent dump, for example, then make Checkmk do its discovery job, then make it run all the checks, and then look at what is the result of that. And then compare it with what we intend to have there. We are already doing that to some degree on the unit test level, so the developers have tools to do like that. But doing that as a developer is also, as I mentioned before in the typing part, kind of a manual journey where you need to think about your cases. You often test in a very atomic way and not from the holistic perspective of the user. Yeah? That you want to discover 5 services, yet that you want to have some specific output for the services, stuff like that. And we want to have this test on that level. And in the next step, we want to combine that with the update tests we already have. So we do some things before the update, then we do the update, and then we compare if that the result after the update is still what we want to have. And after that, we are working, or we want to work on extension package tests, which ensure that the most used extensions are still compatible with Checkmk during development. After every commit, or after a bunch of commits, check, did we change something in an incompatible way, unintended. Of course, this is something which also needs to address on a different level, on the API level, as Moritz already talked about. But even if we built that today and would make it available in the 2.3, we would still have a lot of existing extension packages which we still need to ensure that they are compatible. So we will build this kind of test to prevent a common source for update issues. Now, a few words about the security team and specifically their roadmap. So they are an application security team. which means they have the responsibility to make Checkmk and the related projects secure. And this is done with various actions. For one very important action is doing dependency tracking. We basically look at what we have as third-party dependency, which libraries we use and stuff, what versions are available for them, and what known security issues are there. Then we work through it, update the packages with the goal to always be up to date and have no security issues in our dependencies. Then we're working also on ourselves and our software. We try to get compliant with one very popular, commonly known application security standard, which is the OWASP ASVS standard, which is, for us, it means analyzing the situation and then working towards the compliance. And if there are exceptions, maybe cases where we don't want to be compliant for some reason, then at least document that in a clear way, which can be reviewed by externals. Then they are doing pen tests, internal ones, so they are doing that themselves. And they organize pen tests with external service providers for the individual audits. And they also react on security reports sent to us of any kind, individual findings, bigger reports of audits done by other companies. They are also working on, making us more aware of security as from the developer perspective. So they tell us, do that and don't do that and stuff like this. They maintain a number of security processes. They build them, they design them, and also execute them to some degree. And from the developer team perspective, they are also the ones who care for the ISO 27001 compliance. So they do everything from the developer team perspective to drive the process, basically. So now I'm reaching the further product updates I wanted to share with you. And the first and most important thing is about release notes. During the past years, we did not do this. This is something we want to introduce, or we actually introduced with the 2.2, and it's mostly about how does Checkmk fit into the IT ecosystem. So with the other software or systems we interface with, to which versions are we compatible? We have had that on the user manual to some degree, but we're not very explicit about that. And going forward, we want to do that for every major release we do, to tell you this specific Checkmk version can run on these operating systems. It can be used with these browsers, and it can be integrated with the authentication provider XYZ in this version. And the most important here is on which operating systems do we run on. Traditionally, this is these 4 distros will remain like this. And we are supporting them in some kind of life cycle. And if you look at the support models of these vendors, that's different for all of them. And to give you an understanding of what we are looking at, which time frame is relevant for us, this is the support levels we look at. And for ourselves, when it comes to the question, which distro do you support with which branch, then we were always kind of doing that ad hoc. And we have now set up some guidelines for that, to be clear internally and also externally. The rules are quite simple. We have the first rule, we only support LTS versions. The second rule is we look at the time frames of our major release, go 3 months in the future, and then we look at which distros are still supported. And we will support these versions. Then going forward, when a new version is released, in the active maintenance of Checkmk, then we will add support. And distros will only be removed between the major upgrades. So during patch release, it's unlikely to have to upgrade the distro you're using. And for every good rule, there are exceptions. And they have been I think at least once we had an exception where we really had a technical reason where we needed to drop distro support early. That is very unlikely, but we want to preserve the right to do so. And yeah, we tell you we will notify you well in advance in case that ever happens. Another exception is in case a distro has more than 4 versions in maintenance at the time, we will limit that at some point. On the next slide, you will see what I mean here. So let's have a look at what this means in a more graphical way. We have our release date, and 3 months after, we have the cutoff date where we want to look at for distro support. For Red Hat, this is quite easy here. It means we will support all the versions currently being maintained by them. Red Hat 10 is somehow announced on a website that it will be released in 2025. This is in our passive maintenance. So this will initially be supported by Checkmk 2.3 then. For SLES, we have actually some kind of interesting version here, which is luckily kind of out of support for us. So it's not supported by the 2.2 anymore. When you're on this version, you need to upgrade the distro. And now you can see here already this is 5 versions being available, maintained by them, and we would have to support all of them, and we do for the 2.2. But remember, we have the rule, we want to have some kind of limit. If that would be bad timing here, we would have 6 SLES versions we had to support, which is kind of strange and feels like too much. And there we want to, in the future, be more restrictive. On Debian, we have currently 2 versions we support with the 2.2, and as you may know, Debian 12 has been released, and with one of the next patch releases, we will also support Debian 12. Then we have Ubuntu, currently 2 versions being maintained, and there also 24.04 will be added at a later time once it's available, and then be supported by a future patch release. So I hope you find this guideline useful. I hope you can also see fit with what you can use in your environment. If not, please reach out to us, let us know, and then we can have a talk if it's somehow useful to, I don't know, change the rules or maybe make exceptions. Then the last thing, I think, what I have here is regarding the Checkmk editions we provide. We have the raw world, we have the enterprise world. The raw world won't change. The enterprise world, there we have 3 editions so far, where I want to talk specifically about the free edition, which so far offered a trial for 30 days where you could use, configure an unlimited amount of hosts. After the 30 days, that fell down to a site in the free mode with a 25 host limit. As we announced, we will have the cloud edition in the 2.2. So it's one more Checkmk edition we publish. And we did not want to extend the zoo of editions. So we reduced the CFE, we removed that, and we integrated that into the CEE. So that was possible because we have in the cloud edition the licensing feature, and that can be transitioned now from the trial mode, which is enabled automatically when you install that edition. Then it goes into free mode if you don't apply a license. And if you apply a license, in the moment you do that, it goes back to the full license mode, where you can use it with a size of your license you have. We made one change, I think important change to know. This is, by the way, how it looks like. Yeah? After you install the cloud edition, your free time is ticking, and you can play around, and then you need to decide if you want to go free or licensed. So you can do that for 30 days, and you have now, with 2.2, you don't have a host limit anymore. We felt it is kind of natural to use a service limit here. And we did not want to take away anything from your free users. We only wanted to use the same metric as we use for sizing the licenses. So what we did is we took the number 25 hosts and we multiplied it by 30. 30 is the number of services we saw during all our analysis of the sizing of hosts to be a good average number of services. So we came up with a 7,500 service limit here. And the licensing, maybe something worth noting in the end is that once you want to apply your license, the one you bought, you get license credentials, which you can directly apply to your site, which then contacts our license server to verify your license, and then it turns your license into a licensed site. And of course, there are many environments where you can't do that. You can't contact the license server directly. So there's the offline licensing way, where you essentially do download something from the Checkmk site, you upload it to the customer portal, you get something back and upload it to Checkmk again, and you're done with the licensing. And the next time you need to do something there in the offline case is in the moment you need to renew your license into your site, then you need to do basically the same again. So Martin is waving already, so I need to come to the end, and lucky I'm at the end. So that's it from my side.